Hey everyone, thanks for watching. It's Vern here, in case you don't know, from Fixing My Faith. A lot of new subscribers on this month, so over 700. So thanks for that, and slowly we get to know each other. Well, today I am talking about this new light. It's we're breaking down the August 2025 Watchtower question from the readers. And let me tell you, it's more than just a doctrinal tweak. It's a tactical move to shock Jehovah's Witnesses back into action. Think about it. By turning their message into a metaphorical hailstone of destruction. And apparently now they know exactly when the preaching work will end. Well, until just before Armageddon. So let's get into it. We'll go right over to their magazine and we'll see what it has to say. Okay, so here we are. To get into the magazine, we have to go to JW.org. Here we are. So we go to library, we go to magazines, and we go all the way down to August. The study issues. Right here in August. And then right here in August, we go down to the question from the readers, and they have it up here, a nice big print for us. Okay, so the question from the readers, apparently from the readers, I don't think it is questions from the readers, but they may have asked that. I think this is Watchtower Tactic. Now, they start out by talking about the end, the final end in big bold letters of Satan's world at Armageddon. They like to swing these words. This is tactical, and they throw that right out at the beginning. They make you as a JW reader feel like you're right at the end. And we will continue to preach the good news just until the end. So then they say, and this is what gets everyone's eyes, we're going to adjust our earlier understanding. Oh, new light. Wow, we got to read this. This is new light. You know, the old light was, remember last year they just had to check the box to go out in service? Well, here's some new light. So previously we understood we'd stop preaching when the tribulation began. But that's not good for the Watchtower, because right now everyone's pretty well stopped preaching. It says this event, we believe, would mark the end of a figurative year as Jehovah's goodwill. And you notice they say, we also felt. This is all opinions, suppositions, folks. This isn't direction from God. Because they wouldn't use these words, we also felt that. They would use words like, well, Jehovah inspired us to say this, or the Bible says this. But they're throwing in their own words. We also felt that those who would survive the Great Tribulation would prove their devotion to Jehovah before the end. What did the governing body sit down in a room and they felt that? They felt that they looked at this wrong. They looked at their current circumstances. I don't know. We're going to look at this. But the final end at Armageddon, you know, again, nice bold letters, final end. Up here they have the final end, big bold letters. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses long for. This is what they go to assemblies. They love this stuff because it's ending. It's ending finally. So then they talk about their classified understanding under Matthew 24 and 14. And then they said it adjusts our understanding of the hailstone message. Let's look at that hailstone message. Have you guys ever seen that? The great hailstones, each about the weight of a talent, fell from heaven on the people, and the people blasphemed God because of the plague of hail, for the plague was unusually great. So a talent is what, 90 pounds, 70 pounds? I don't know. It's heavy. So imagine these hailstones that heavy, but Watchtower is saying, well, that's our magazines. They're heavy. They're going to be like hailstones, our magazines, our message. So they're saying Jehovah's name will be made known as never before. And at that late point in time, after the destruction of Babylon the Great, will some be drawn in? Quite possibly. And then they use a way of comparison. They compare Egypt, you know, the 10 plagues. But here's what's interesting, folks. They compare Egypt to the 10 plagues. Now I'm going to ask you this question. Were the 10 plagues literal? Well, of course they were. You know, the blood, the hail, everything was literal. the Bible. Jehovah's Witnesses typically take the Bible as literal, but now they're changing it. It's not literal. It's symbolic. It's us. We're the hailstone. We're the message. So it's interesting. But they use this comparison. They take literal events and they try to make it the same, but they're changing it. You see, if they said, yeah, there's going to be literal hailstones, it could kill us. It's going to be aimed at destroying the right people, God's divine judgment. I don't know. Sometimes we don't know the meaning of these scriptures, but Watchtower does. Watchtower has a way of twisting them and making them suit their interest. So they say any who turn to Jehovah after the destruction will have the privilege of doing good to Christ's brothers. Who's Christ's brothers? Well, it's them. They're Christ's brothers, that group that's depositioned in New York because of covering up crimes of child sex. They're the ones that they figure are Christ's brothers. That's what they figure. And you and I know different. They're Satan's brothers. They're the snake. But anyways, we're going to go along with this. I got out of this nonsense. Did I believe it when I was in there? Some of it, and some of it, no. But let's take a look at this a little further. Let's talk about it. I think it's important that we discuss these things and pull it all out. So let's talk about the timeline. The article opens with this: we will continue to preach the good news until just before the final end. Well, this adjusts our earlier understanding. New light. So wait, adjusts? No. That's rewriting. They rewrote this. So before, the preaching work would stop when the Great Tribulation begins, right after Babylon the Great, aka false religion, is destroyed. So now preaching continues right up to Armageddon. They even toss out their old illustrations about the faithful Jews being marked for survival before Jerusalem fell. So why the changes? Well, it's quite simple. The ministry's collapsing. Most JWs today are barely active. The monthly report is a checkbox. The service arrangements are disorganized. Most carts sit in the basement. Field service is often a silent, anxious sprint, no conversation. Just drop a tract in and get out. And this new light conveniently extends the deadline to preach, just in time to cover for a major lack of engagement. So the hailstone message, it gets a makeover. Now for the truly bizarre part, our clarified understanding of Matthew 24 and 14 also adjusts our understanding of the hailstone message. The symbolic hailstorm will be unusually great. What they are saying is the hailstone in Revelation 16 and 21 that we read, literally 75 to 100 pound chunks of divine judgment, are actually a Watchtower magazine with a bold talk at the Kingdom Hall. They've rebranded themselves as a plague from heaven. No kidding. Well, let's call this what it is. It's hailstone hypocrisy. The Watchtower says Revelation's hailstones are symbolic, but they interpret blood transfusion prohibitions literally, even down to the molecular fraction. Literal blood equals death. Literal hail, well, it's a bold talk from JW.org in their magazine or on the platform. It's a farce, folks. It's not just misleading, it's tactical. I've traveled all over British Columbia last year. We've traveled out to Toronto last year. And this year, I travel into our main city. I travel through the small communities. Guess what? I have not seen any carts. Last year, when I went to the very southern tip of BC, in a little town called Creston, we were going uptown at lunchtime. We seen a cart. I stopped out, got out, and talked to the guys, and they packed up and left. They realized I was an apostate. So I traveled. There's no carts. Not one conversation, not one genuine effort to explain their message. We were living in Coldstream here for the last 3 months, and they came by with their memorial invitation, but they were in and out so quick we didn't even have time to breathe. They just handed it and it ran, took off. I was just coming to the door and going to engage, and they took off. They handed the brochure and took off. It was just but there was no engagement to find out if we were interested. Why? Because they're afraid. They're afraid. They know the public backlash is real. Shunning children, the blood policy deaths, child abuse cover-ups, ongoing lawsuits, global negative press. That's why people run for cover. Not because the message is too holy, it's because the message is contaminated by a cult-like control and trauma. That's why. So now the Watchtower spins it. They say, see, people reject us because our message is so powerful. It must be divine. No. They reject you because your message is wrapped in fear, enforced by shame, and void of love. And now that the carts are all collecting dust and the doors stay closed, they're saying the hailstones are magazines. That's what they're saying. It's pathetic. So to soften the blow, they include this line. This clarified understanding illustrates that Jehovah's great love and mercy, he does not desire any to be destroyed. But then what? Well, they still preach destruction for anyone who doesn't align with the organization. And they've just moved the timeline to make it look more merciful. So now even after the Great Tribulation starts, people can respond like the vast mixed company in Egypt that followed Moses. Except that now, latecomers must do good to Christ's brothers, aka the anointed JW leadership in New York. Or else they'll be judged as goats and wiped out in Armageddon. Does that sound like mercy? Or does it sound like a last-minute spiritual blackmail? Think about it. And this isn't new. 1914 was the end. Now it's just the beginning. The Great Generation teaching changed so many times, it's a meme. And now preaching will go all the way to the final moment. Funny how the new light always extends Watchtower's authority. It never reduces it. Each change is designated to justify failure, to control behavior, and to preserve their image of divine approval. That's what they're trying to put out. So here's the bottom line, folks. This hailstone message, it's not a prophecy, it's a rebrand. It's a desperate attempt to revive a dying ministry by turning printed literature into divine wrath. They claim their message is now stronger than ever, but the truth, the only people running for cover are the witnesses themselves. And the only real hailstorm out there is the avalanche of bad press, lawsuits, and public rejection hitting the Watchtower's roof. So what do you think? Have you experienced their version of the hailstone message? Do you see the preaching activity dropping in your area too? Let's talk about this in the comments, and remember, keep living your life with love, not fear. We'll see you on the next video, and have a great day.